Welcome to our weekly Forex Forecast, and this is for the week of March 25th to 29th, 2019. So before we dive into it, just a quick disclaimer here. This is for educational purposes only. Trading is a risky business, so please be careful with your money. All right, so we'll start off by taking a look at our calendar as usual. So let's start off with our economic calendar. So we'll do, okay, so we need the whole week, the entire week. So let's see. Okay, so we are coming off of some volatility in the market here. So the biggest thing last week that we saw was that EU has approved the extension for Brexit. So March 29th is not going to be the Brexit day. So they have set a couple of dates there. One is April 12th or 11th, where they are supposed to have an agreement by, and May 22nd, prior to the elections in EU. That's when Brexit is supposed, or Brexit extension goes until. So those are the two main things or main dates that we have for Brexit. So that was the big thing over the last few weeks, the back and forth negotiations, as well as all the uncertainty around that. All right, so coming up for this week, let's take a look. Starting off on Monday, no red data, but we do have FOMC member Evans speaking here, as well as the German IFO business climate number. This is important. Trade balance number for New Zealand. This will be important, even though it's not marked as red news here, but it will have an impact on New Zealand dollars. So pay attention to that. On Tuesday, we have important stuff coming up here for US here. We just have building permits, but also the consumer confidence number. This number is important here, so we'll have to be mindful of that. And then we have rate here for New Zealand dollar, as well as the rate statement for New Zealand here. So this will be very important. We saw RBA, which is for Australia, actually had a bit of a dovish outlook on the economy. So let's see what New Zealand comes up with. We're not expecting an interest rate hike at all at this point, or a cut. But if the commentary and the outlook turns dovish for Reserve Bank of New Zealand as well, that will have a negative impact on the New Zealand dollar. And we have seen for over the last little while, the central banks are turning dovish. We have seen Fed turn dovish, Bank of Canada. We saw ECB turn dovish. So let's see what Reserve Bank of New Zealand says. If they have language in there that suggests that they are expecting the economy to slow down, or they're concerned about trade wars or overall global economy, any of those things will be considered dovish and could have a negative impact on New Zealand dollar. And then on Wednesday here, we have ECB President Draghi speaking. Anytime we have a central banker speaking, it is important. So we need to pay attention to that, because a market can move when they're speaking. Canada here, trade balance numbers, very, very important here, especially with Bank of Canada being concerned about the economy. If the trade balance numbers are negative, it will have a negative impact on Canadian dollar, which means the dollar CAD can go up. So be mindful of that. We also have trade balance numbers out of the US here. Those will impact US dollar. And then coming up on a Wednesday in the Asian session here, we have business confidence numbers here for New Zealand. So if we start to see negative data, it can have a negative impact on New Zealand dollar. So just be aware of that. On Thursday, we have final GDP numbers for the US for the quarter here. Again, important data point that we need to pay attention to. And then we have Reserve Bank of New Zealand Governor Orr speaking. So tons of New Zealand dollar data coming out here, which will have an impact on it. On Friday here, we have current account number for British pound here. Again, a very important number we have to be aware of. GDP numbers for Canada here will have an impact on Canadian dollar. And then, of course, we have the Brexit vote here. on Friday. It is tentative. We don't know what time it's going to come out, so we have to pay attention to that. And of course, then we also have daylight savings time shift for our European friends. So that will have an impact on what time we are trading. So that's all we have in terms of the calendar. So let's go on to our charts here. As usual, we'll start off by taking a look at our euro here. So what we saw in terms of euro, last week we had a bullish candle and we were looking for price to go up. We got that, and then it ended the week with a nice pin bar here. So pin bar is a bearish signal, and as such, euro is bearish. So bias is to the downside here. However, watch out for pullbacks here. Anytime we have large moves, we have to watch out for pullbacks. So this is the type of move I would be looking for. And potentially further down. So bias is to the downside. Looking for a pullback into 1.1380, and then finally a drop towards 1.1180 and potentially into 1.110. So bias is to the downside here for euro dollar. Pound dollar here, this one also, this one was volatile here. So we have seen a lot of volatility in the British pound over the last few weeks here, and actually, as we can see, for the last 4 weeks, price has just traded in this range back and forth here. So this week we have an interesting setup. We have what's called a hanging man here, which means we still have bearishness in this candle, but price did get pushed up higher here. So there's still bearishness in the candle, and as such the bias will be to the downside. So we'll take a look at this. So a bias here for our pound dollar is to the downside. So there's a quick question here. Carrie's asking, is this review for Forex only? We'll take a look at commodities, Bitcoin, as well as the equity indices as well. So we'll cover a few different things, but we usually start off with the Forex pairs before we dive into the other ones. Okay, so the bias is to the downside, looking for price to drop here. 1.2950 will be the target to the downside. So in this case, what we could expect is potentially a bit of a pullback and then a drop to the downside here, basically looking for price to trade in the range and move towards the bottom of the range. So bias for pound dollar here is to the downside. Next, Aussie dollar here. Aussie has dropped here, and we have a pin bar in this one as well. Last week, our bias was to the upside. Price went up into the support resistance level here. This is quite a solid support resistance level. And now we have a pin bar to the downside. So looking for price to drop here. First target is 0.700. So looking for it to drop. And second target will be 0.6920. So bearish bias for Aussie dollar as well. New Zealand dollar here. This one has been stronger than a lot of other ones here. So it was definitely stronger than Aussie dollar. So what we see here is that price has gone into our support resistance at the top there. So bias here for this week is interesting because we have a rejection from the high, but there is still bullishness in the candle. So in this case, I would, maybe we can look for pullback right into the high. So if the data or Reserve Bank of New Zealand is bullish, we could see a spike into the high and or even into that high at 0.6980 level. But then I'm looking for a pullback. So or a drop from there, I should say. So in this case, we see that for several weeks here, price has just been trading in a range, hasn't really been able to make much headway. So I'm looking for it to stay within the range. It has rejected the high of the range. Perhaps we can get another test of the high but then I'm looking for price to drop here. So bias for New Zealand dollar for this week is to the downside. Target is 0.6700. So bearish bias for New Zealand dollar. Dollar CAD here has moved up here. So we see a bullish candle close. But as we can see for the last 3 weeks here, price has been trading in a range. So it is a bit range bound at the moment. And in terms of what can we look for, bias is bullish here. As we can see, there's a bullish candle close. Now with this one, what we could see is a retest of the low and then further move to the upside back towards the high of the range. So first target here is 1.3460 level. If price has momentum, it can go through it to the next level, which will be 1.3660. So right now bias is bullish and first target is 1.3460 level here for dollar CAD. Euro pound has been all over the place, back and forth here. And now we have a rejection from the high here, but we still have bullishness, a little bit of bullishness in this candle. So watch out for a bit of a pullback here. And I will look for retest of that level and then a further drop from there. So bias is to the downside. First target is 1.8470. Second target will be 0.8470 and 0.8380 level. So bias is bearish for Euro pound. Euro Swiss franc, a big drop here in Euro Swiss franc. In this case, we have finally seen price drop here. We had that trend line going to the downside here. We had talked about it. And finally, we have that break to the downside. Now, this is a big drop here, which means we could get pullbacks. So watch out for pullbacks either into 1.1250 or even potentially into 1.1300 level, and then a further drop here. So bias here is bearish for Euro Swiss franc here, but watch out for those pullbacks. And then then our target here is 1.1120. Bias is bearish for Euro Swiss franc. Pound Swiss franc, British pound has been all over the place, like I have mentioned before, due to Brexit uncertainty. So in this case, we see that price has been in this range for the last 4 weeks here, and it tried to go and test this level here, but there is a big pin in the bottom here, which means it can push higher, but bias is to the downside based on this candle close. And what I would look for here would be potentially something like that. So bias is to the downside. First target would be the bottom of this pin, which is 1.2920, and if it breaks through, 1.2770 level. So bearish bias here for pound Swiss franc. Dollar Swiss franc here, this one is looking bearish. We saw a nice drop here. So bias is still bearish. Last week we were bearish on this. This week we are still bearish. We could get a pullback like that, but that's the move I'm looking for. Bias is to the downside. Target is 0.9850. So bearish bias for dollar Swiss franc. And in terms of our so in terms of our pound yen, this one as well, we have been trading in the range for the last 4 weeks. As we can see, price has just been back and forth with all the pound crosses. So with this one, bias is to the downside. We have a bearish candle close. And finally, I'm looking for a break out of the range and a further drop, hopefully here. But bias is bearish. Watch out for the range-bound move, which means it can go back into the range, but bias is bearish here. Once we see a break here, only then would I target 140.65 level here, but bias is bearish for pound yen. Euro yen here, huge drop last week, so now we need to see a bit of a pullback. So bias is bearish, and as we can see, we have a lower high, biases to the downside. And the next target here is fairly close here, 123.50. And then we're looking for 122.20 level here. So bearish bias. And in terms of the pullback, we could aim at potentially 125.50-ish level, and then looking for a further drop here. So bias is bearish for euro yen. Dollar yen here, this one is also weak this week. Bias is to the downside. And in terms of the pullback here, we are looking for potentially into 111, and then a further drop, 108. Actually, let's move this a little bit lower. 107.80 will be the target here, but watch out for this pin, which is 108.50. So 108.50 is the first target. 107.80 will be the second target. Aussie yen here, nice drop in Aussie yen after the daily pin bar there. So bias is bearish here. As we can see, price has been a little bit range bound here as well, trading in this range. So right now, bias is bearish. We could get a bit of a pullback here as well, and then looking for a drop. And first target here would be 77.00, and then second target is 76.00. So bias is bearish for Aussie yen. New Zealand yen here as well, we saw a drop. And as we can see, price has been trading in a range here as well. Went to the high of the range. We have a drop from there. So looking for price to go towards the bottom of the range here, which is 75.00. And if it breaks through that, looking for 74.00. So bearish bias for New Zealand yen as well. CAD yen here, let's take a quick peek. Huge drop here. Bias is bearish. And in terms of our target here, looking for a bit of a pullback and then a drop. So 82.50 is a potential pullback level, and target here is 80.80. So bearish bias here for CAD yen. All right, so that's for our crosses here. Now let's take a look at our commodities. So we'll start off with our gold as usual. Now let me just, sorry, I need to move my charts closer next time. Okay, so gold. Gold is interesting this week. Let's change this to weekly. So we do have a weekly bullish candle here for gold. So it could go higher. And next target would be 1331 and then potentially into 1346. So let's take a quick peek here. See if it looks good. Okay, so it is moving higher here. And as we can see, price has pushed higher. But we have this big drop here. So price could turn from here. So I will watch out for that. In case price turns from here, because we have this type of a move, so it could drop. We could get something like this. So if price does not break this 1320 level, it could drop from here. So do watch out for that. But in terms of actual candle close here, the candle close is bullish. And if it gets through our high here, then chances are it could go test the high up top there. So for now, bias is bullish for gold. So that's our gold. Let's take a look at oil here. Oil has been interesting. We have seen a fair bit of a move up to the upside here, but now we have a pin bar. So pin bar is a sign of weakness. So if we take a look here, we have a similar candle here. So as we can see, price was going up. We get a pin bar and then price drops from there. So we have similar thing here. Price went up into this previous support resistance level and then has bounced off of that level. So bias here is bearish based on that. And this is the type of move I would look for. So looking for a drop and target here would be 55.20. But if for some reason price is not able to break the low of this pin, or the top of these candles here, it could go higher. And so watch out for that. And also watch out for retest of the high as well. But overall bias is to the downside. 55.20 is the target for oil. Copper here, huge drop for copper. As we can see, price tested this level 3 times. And since then, sorry. Okay, so price has dropped here. Price has dropped here, tested this level 3 times, and now we have a break to the downside. So looking for price to drop further. So this is bearish here. Watch out for a pullback into 2.86. We have had a big drop here. So do look for a pullback and then looking for a further drop. So copper is looking bearish this week. 2.73 will be the target to the downside. And then let's have a peek at silver and also our Bitcoin. So silver here is also slightly bearish here. There is still bullishness in this one. So be careful with this one. I think here. So this is what I will look for in this one here. My bias would be bearish, but we could, because there is bullishness in this candle, watch out for retest. And then I will look for a drop potentially into the bottom of this candle here. So bias is to the downside with caution though. And we have a similar move here, a drop, pullback, drop. That's what I will watch out for, but look for a pullback into 15.50 and then a further drop or even into the high of this pin here, then looking for a drop. So bias is bearish. Now for Bitcoin here, this one, my Forex broker does not trade on the weekend, so I don't have the latest price. But based on this here, bias is to the downside, but do check out whatever the latest price is here. For Bitcoin, Saturday is not included in my broker here. So with this one, bias is to the downside. Price has just been trading in this range. So looking for price to come back towards 37.80 level. So bearish here for Bitcoin. All right, and now let's go and take a look at our equities, see what the equities are doing. So we got a drop here on Friday, which gives us a pin bar for our S&P 500. Now that suggests a bearish move here. So bias is bearish and target is 2720 here for S&P 500. So bearish bias there. And since we are doing S&P, let's do NASDAQ right after. This one here also have a pin bar here. So bias is bearish. First target is 7,200. And then if it goes through that, looking for 69.82. So bearish bias here for NASDAQ. Nikkei, also bearish here. We saw a drop in all the equities. So bearish bias here. First target is 20,820. And then after that, if it goes through that, we're looking for 20,178. So bearish bias for Nikkei. DAX too, a big drop here. So big bearish move to the downside. Watch out for pullback into 11490. But bias is bearish and first target would be 11010. So bearish bias. So the type of move that I would look out for here would be something like this. So bearish bias here for DAX as well. FTSE here, a big drop in FTSE as well. So if this continues, our yen crosses are likely to be bearish as well. So this one here, bias is bearish. We have a pin bar, nice pin bar here. So I would look for a further drop. Bias is bearish for FTSE as well. And somebody had asked a question about New Zealand CAD. Let's see if I have a chart. New Zealand CAD. If not, we'll pull it up. It's not a pair that I trade usually. Okay, so let me pull up a chart and let's see what we've got. Here is my new chart. Forex, New Zealand CAD. If I can find it. Euro CAD, Aussie CAD. It'd be nice if they were actually ordered properly. New Zealand CAD, here we go. All right, let's change this to something that I like to see. Okay. All right, so here's our New Zealand CAD. Let's take a peek. New Zealand CAD looking bullish. And yeah, so this is a current chart. Okay, so looking bullish here, but it is coming into resistance. So this is bullish here, nice bullish candle close, but look at this resistance. We're coming into some major resistance here, so be careful with that one. So for now, the bias is bullish. However, if price cannot get through this, it could just turn around here because as we can see, this has been a range here. So price has been trading in this range here. Actually, let me just pick a different tool. So price has been trading in this range for some time here, for several weeks now, actually. So if price is not able to break through this 0.9250 level, chances are it could drop. Now, we do have a solid bullish candle close. So if it does get through, then I would look for a pullback in this area and then a further move higher. So bias is bullish, but with caution because of the major resistance there. And somebody asked about euro dollar. Euro dollar is bearish. We have a nice pin bar. Targets are 1.1180 and 1.1100. So bias is bearish for euro dollar. All right, any questions? All right, so we will call it a wrap. I'm going to be actually starting today. I'm going to start putting out a spreadsheet with all these pairs that we looked at. If you're interested in that, when I upload the sorry, what do we call it? Video on YouTube. Sorry. If you are interested in downloading the spreadsheet, there will be a link there, so you can go download it. It's free, of course, so you can download it for there, so you have it in front of you as you're trading during the week. And before we drop off here, another question, dollar index. Let me see if I have a dollar index. Let's see, do I have dollar index here? We do not have dollar index, but I do have dollar index here. Let me just look for it. Where's my dollar index? I know I saw it. USD index, here we go. Okay, so dollar index, where are we? Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Okay, so dollar index, there's still some bearishness in here. So from a daily perspective, dollar index is moving higher. We had this big drop here. Now it's slowly moving higher. There's still room for it to go further up here. So in this case, we have this level here. So a bit of a gap there. It could fill the gap. So I would look for a slight move to the upside here. But from a weekly perspective, there is bearishness in this candle. So in this case, we could get a drop here. So watch out for that. See how we had this candle here? There was bearishness in this candle, but there was a pin on top, in the bottom here, and price dropped. So it can do this. So be careful with dollar index. So there is a gap on the daily, which means it could go fill up the gap there, and then it could drop from there. So the gap is all the way into the high of this candle, 96.50 level here. And then it could drop, do the bottom test, and then move higher. So this is the kind of a concern with candles with pins in the bottom, because price can do a drop. So in this case, there's still bearishness in the candle. So we could see a drop from there. But dollar index has also been trading in this range for a while. So we'll watch out and see where it goes. MU, what is MU? Is this Mexican peso? Micron. Oh, I do not know Micron. So I am not sure if I can help you with that, my friend. I will have to look into it. Offhand, I do not know. Any other questions before we wrap it up? All right, so that's it. We'll call it a wrap. You guys have a wonderful rest of the weekend. And if you want to download the spreadsheet, if you're on my list, there will be a link to it. Or if you watch it on YouTube or Facebook, there will be a link to it there as well. So have a wonderful rest of the day, and I will see you next time. Bye for now.